Patrick Schwarzenegger is making waves in Hollywood, and if his last name sounds familiar, that's because, yes, he is Arnold Schwarzenegger's son. Pretty cool, right? And now, he's stepping into the spotlight with a major role in the third season of The White Lotus. Born on September 18, 1993, Patrick is the eldest son of Maria Shriver and Arnold Schwarzenegger. With parents like that, Hollywood was practically in his DNA.
It's such a weird thing to see your parents in this kind of different way.
But Patrick didn't just follow in his dad's footsteps. He made his own path. He started with a small role in The Benchwarmers, 2006, later modeling for Armani and Ralph Lauren before landing roles in films like Midnight Sun, 2018, and Daniel Isn't Real, 2019. His career took off with HBO's The Staircase, 2022, and his role as Golden Boy in Gen 5, proving he's more than just his father's son.
My son is a little bit kind of like me, that he gets into this whole career thing.
Growing up, Patrick was well aware of his famous parents. In an interview with Mind Food, he laughed about realizing it early on. I definitely had a different kind of upbringing, highlighted by things like visiting my dad at the Capitol or going on set on Bring Your Son to Work Day, he shared.
But I really grew up going on set with him. I fell in love with it, and it's been a really fun journey.
Did you ever have regular jobs?
I did.
What did you do?
I did. I have my own pizza joint called Blaze Pizza.
But Patrick never felt pressured to compete with his parents' success. He put it simply, that's not my goal in life. Instead, he's all about carving out his own path while embracing the lessons his parents taught him, especially about giving back. What a great mindset to have.
Actually, you know what? He still has his first phone he could ever afford, the flip, and he still uses it in the car.
And speaking of Arnold, the father-son duo has a great relationship. Patrick loves raiding his dad's closet. Not for clothes, because let's be real, Arnie's stuff is way too big, but for watches and jewelry. He's also fascinated by his dad's past, saying, "He had a whole life before even having me." That's right, Arnold was nearly 50 when Patrick was born. Imagine all the life stories he has to share.
I talk to him sometimes about it, but he really wants to kind of learn it himself. He wants to take acting lessons. He's very serious about it.
Of course, Arnold is Patrick's biggest cheerleader. He even showed up at the White Lotus Season 3 premiere to support his son. He posted about it on Instagram, writing, "What a show!" And, of course, Arnold couldn't resist adding a little humor. After finding out Patrick has a nude scene, he joked, "The apple doesn't fall far from the tree." Classic Arnie.
Everybody asks that. They're like, does your dad always say his one-liners? And I'm like, all the time.
But here's the fun part. Patrick actually kept his White Lotus casting a secret. The only person who knew was his fiancée, Abby Champion. But when Patrick started acting a little weird at a family gathering, his mom and sister got suspicious.
And my mom was like, "Why are you acting so weird?" And I was like, "Oh, no, nothing." And then they looked at Abby, my fiance, and my sister's like, "Why are you acting weird?" And she was like, I'm not. They're like, "Oh, you're pregnant."
He later admitted he was sworn to secrecy about the role and didn't even tell his dad for fear he'd spill the beans to industry friends. Classic parent move, right? No matter how famous they are, they just can't help but brag about their kids. When Patrick finally broke the news, his family was thrilled. His mom, Maria Shriver, was so excited that she and the rest of the fam even flew out to Thailand to visit him during filming. It was extra special for them since they're all huge White Lotus fans.
And so we would watch every episode together, me, my mom, my fiance, my sisters, my brother. It was a whole family thing every single Sunday for the first 2 seasons.
Now, let's talk about the premiere. Both Arnold and Maria showed up to support their son. But Arnold did something a bit unexpected. He ducked out of the family photo. Why, you ask? Well, the reason might be tied to their messy divorce, sparked by Arnold's secret child. But more on that later. Arnold's life has been full of triumphs and struggles. So, let's rewind and take a closer look at the story behind the man who shaped Patrick's world. He had a very troubled relationship with his father, who had been a Nazi in the Second World War, and along with constantly being overshadowed by his older brother, Arnold had to fight hard in order to be seen by those around him. He knew he wanted a different life. However, he faced obstacles almost every step of the way, and he made some mistakes that would come back to haunt him. Arnold Schwarzenegger was born in Austria during the post-World War II era. The family lived in poverty, suffering from the aftershock that the war had left behind. He grew up so poor that one of the highlights of his childhood was when his family had finally been able to afford a refrigerator for their food. His father, Gustav, was a chief police officer and had also been part of the Nazi Party. Gustav was a violent man, and young Arnold was often beaten, bullied, and belittled by him. Arnold's older brother, Meinhard, had always been his father's favorite, which constantly left him feeling unloved and a disappointment to his father. Growing up, he was a skinny boy and wasn't as athletic in comparison to his older brother. As a way to torment young Arnold, his father would often mock him for his size and force. He encouraged the brothers to physically fight one another to prove to Arnold that he wasn't as strong as Meinhard. It was those moments, being pitted up against his own brother and shamed for his own size, that woke something up in young Arnold. He wanted to be stronger. He wanted to be able to stand up for himself and for others who aren't able to defend themselves. He decided he wanted to become a bodybuilder. My hair was pulled. I was hit with belts. Every time someone said, "You can't do this," I said, "This is not going to be for much longer because I'm going to move out of here. I want to be rich. I want to be somebody." When he told his father about what he wanted to do, his dad laughed at him and told him that he would never be able to accomplish anything. Arnold was determined to prove him wrong, and he wasn't going to let anything stop him. My own plan formed when I was 14 years old. My father had wanted me to be a police officer like he was. My mother wanted me to go to trade school. Bodybuilding wasn't the popular sport that it is today. When Arnold started going to the gym and his body started to change, his mother began to worry about him. She even called a doctor because she was so concerned about her son, thinking he might have been gay. She asked the doctor, "Can you help me? I don't know if there's something wrong with my son because his wall is full of naked men. All of Arnold's friends have pictures of girls above their bed, and Arnold has no girls." When he was 18, Arnold started his compulsory one-year service in the Austrian army as a tank driver. However, not even the responsibility of being an army man would stop him from competing in bodybuilding competitions. He went AWOL to participate in the Junior Mr. Europe competition, which he won, but the abandonment of his post didn't go unpunished. Arnold was put in a military prison. Years later, after all his success, he purchased the same tank he drove in during his army service.
Well, this was the very tank that I actually drove in the Austrian army. When I was 18 years old, I went in the Austrian army and I became a tank driver.
Schwarzenegger also turned to the movies as a way to escape from his life at home. He was inspired by Reg Park's Hercules films. Not only did he want to be as strong as Parks, but he wanted to live the American dream too. So Arnold had two new obsessions: bodybuilding and America. He knew that if he could move to the USA, that his need to become a world-famous bodybuilder would be even easier for him to achieve. Finally, after years of hard work, training at the gym harder than anyone, he was spotted by a bodybuilding scout and sponsored to attend competitions in America. It would make me sick to miss a workout. I knew I couldn't look at myself in the mirror the next morning if I didn't do it. Schwarzenegger was charming, funny, and was kind to all those around him that it was virtually impossible not to fall in love with him. His bodybuilding career soared. He was winning competition after competition, and eventually went on to win an unprecedented 5 Mr. Universe titles and 6 Mr. Olympia crowns. He was the youngest person to ever win the Mr. Universe title, hitting the world record. He was a champion, and he was proud of himself for not only everything he had achieved, but for having proven all those who doubted him wrong. The Mr. Universe title was my ticket to America, the land of opportunity, where I could become a star and get rich. While the bodybuilding champion was making a name for himself all over the world, tragedy struck his family in Austria. His brother, Meinhard, had been driving under the influence of alcohol and was killed in a traffic accident. Even though his brother had always been the family favorite, Arnold had still been able to have a good relationship with him. The news of his brother's death was heartbreaking, but he decided not to fly back home for the funeral because he did not want to have to face his father. Just a year and a half later, his father passed away from a stroke, and he chose not to attend that funeral either. He didn't feel like he needed to attend the funeral of the man who had tormented him for so much of his life, even if it was his own flesh and blood. Arnold was focused on his career, which would soon be moving to the silver screen and make him an action hero legend. Following in the footsteps of his acting idol Reg Parks, Arnold was cast as Hercules in the 1969 film. It seems as though he was ticking off all of his goals. Unfortunately, the upcoming actor soon had to learn that there was a downside to fame, which was the loss of anonymity. Now that the world knew who he was, there was no way for him to keep his private life away from the tabloids. And soon there would be a scandal so big that it would shake his family and test the strength of his marriage. He married Maria Shriver in 1986, who was a member of the famous Kennedy family. For a while, it seemed as though Arnold had everything a man could ever dream of. A booming career that was churning out blockbuster films left, right, and center, a beautiful wife and children, and more money than he could have ever imagined. He was no longer the small, bullied boy from Austria who was being beaten by the hands of his father and couldn't afford food. He was a Hollywood action hero turned politician. There was nothing he couldn't do. In 2011, the world was shocked to find out that Maria and Arnold had separated. His wife had found out that her husband had an affair with none other than their family housekeeper, Mildred Baina. Not only had they had an affair, but he had also gotten her pregnant. Even more shocking was that Mildred gave birth to their son, Joseph, just a few days after his wife gave birth to their second son, Christopher. However, Arnold adamantly denied that Joseph was his son, and he did so for almost 8 years. Schwarzenegger admitted it only when Joseph, quote, started looking like me. That's when I kinda got it. I put things together. Shriver described his admission to the affair and illegitimate child as painful and heartbreaking. She knew Arnold had been unfaithful with his previous girlfriends, but never thought he would have done it to her. Sadly, their marriage did not survive the scandal, and the couple split in 2011 with Maria moving into a nearby home, so their children could easily go between the two parents. Arnold took financial responsibility for his illegitimate son, Joseph, as soon as he knew that he was his real son. Things seemed amicable between him and his ex-wife, and Schwarzenegger took full responsibility for what he had done, admitting that he had done wrong, adding that this was his least proud moment. Though he and Maria were never able to rekindle their romance, he has done everything he can do to put his family first and be the best father that he can to his children.